for the revised capital programme and also to note the projected prudential and other indicators. So the capital strategy was approved by Council in February this year as part of the budget papers. And at that time, the approved capital budget was £70 million. The programme is brought to Council regularly, and it was last brought here and approved in July of this year. Section 4 of tonight's report outlines the current position on the Council's capital programme. The revised programme for the year totals £89.5 million, with £54 million of that being funded via Bridgend Council's resources and the balance of £35.5 million being funded from external sources. A breakdown of the programme across services is now shown in Table 1, and the funding of that programme is shown in Table 2 within your report. Details regarding individual schemes and their projected spend as at the end of September is shown in Appendix A. As well as adjustments for slippage to next year, the report does detail some new and amended schemes for approval, which include additional funding to support the rollout of universal primary free school meals, Welsh Government funding to optimise learning environments for those with additional learning needs, Welsh Government funding to support further works at Maesteg Town Hall, additional funding for an additional mobile classroom provision at Ysgol Gymraeg Bro Ogwr, relocation of depot facilities, and also some funding to support refurbishment works in Bridgend Town Centre. As you can see, a number of these changes are being funded via grant funding, which we've been notified of during the year. And a full revised programme is shown at Appendix B. Just to reassure members that we will obviously continue to monitor the spend on the capital programme, particularly bearing in mind the issues in relation to inflation and increased costs for suppliers during the course of this year. And if that changes, we will obviously report that back to Council. So when Council approved the capital strategy for the year, it also included some prudential indicators, and Appendix D to this report shows that the Council is operating within those approved limits. So if I may, Mr Mayor, I take you to Section 9 of the report and the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Paris. I don't know if Councillor Howell-Williams would like to make any comments to support the report.
Didn't have access to my hand, and
Sorry, Councillor Williams.
But given the hour, Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to dwell too long on this. Just to welcome the additional funding we received from Welsh Government. There's some very important projects in there, providing new school classrooms and obviously the investment in the crematorium is very much to be welcomed. And we roll forward with our universal free school meals offer. So there's some good positive items in that report. Happy to support. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Amanda Williams, you indicated you wish to speak.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry, apologies. I just wanted to raise, first of all, page 199, Coity Primary School is spelt incorrectly. It's spelled with an I and it should be an E. It's spelled correctly everywhere else in the report. And on Coity Primary School, I welcome the money that is due to be spent on the school to extend it. I firstly would like assurances that if the works required, because obviously this hasn't gone through planning or consultation, that if the works came in at more than the 1.6 million, that this would continue, this project would continue to go ahead. And also, I was a bit disappointed to see that there's going to be a mobile classroom in the Welsh school when there is, when I asked for the same in Coity, because we had 24 children in catchment declined a place in nursery this year, and yet there weren't excessive places in the Welsh school. So I was a bit disappointed at that, and I wanted to raise that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'll defer to Mr. Harvey, Director of Education.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of the record, I'm Lindsay Harvey, I'm the Corporate Director of Education and Family Support. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Williams for the questions. So with regard to COIT, first of all, we certainly note the typo with COIT, and we'll amend that. With regard to the extensions on both, the usual caveats obviously apply here with regard to planning consent, and also as the paper I took to Cabinet yesterday evening, is it clearly these would be subject to a statutory consultation process in both instances. So currently, as far as the Bro Ogo is concerned, although they're not at capacity throughout the school, clearly there are some year groups within the school that are at capacity. And one of the things that we are seeking to, with regard to our WESP, which is currently published on our BCBC website, is to expand the offer for Welsh medium learners in Bridgend as a statutory requirement. And part of that, as an interim measure, we'd be looking to put a double mobile classroom in Bro Ogo. As far as County Primary is concerned, you'll be aware that we are looking at a 4-classroom extension. This is subject clearly to the statutory notice process for an enlargement of the school. As part of that, we'll clearly work with the governing body and other partners in making sure all voices are heard. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Councillor Williams, did you pick up that response?
I did, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eugene Capros, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I recently visited Bro Ogo with the leader, cabinet member and director, and we were told then that the school was growing and in need of new classrooms. So I very much welcome the investment of £270,000 into those mobile classrooms. They are very much needed, and hopefully we'll see the school through until the new state-of-the-art school is built, which was discussed in cabinet yesterday. So just putting on record my appreciation for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Timothy Thomas, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just, excuse me, I seem to recall a previous discussion on £500,000 allocated of capital funded for unadopted roads. It's part of the annual 2022-23 capital programme, part of the year. Just wondering, at the time when that was discussed at full council, details were a little bit limited. Now we're further progressed in the financial year. Can an officer give me a little bit more details as to where that £500,000 will be spent, and is there any specific unadopted roads that have been flagged? It's on the annual capital programme, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Can I defer to communities for an answer on that? It does appear to be highways related.
Yes, it is. It is in my directorate, Mr. Mayor, but I have to admit I don't have that information in front of me. But what we do have is a one-off sum of £500,000 for unadopted roads, but we wanted to take some money out of the 500,000 for doing minor repairs to it's for unadopted roads in council ownership, for roads that were not in council ownership. Does that make sense? We wanted to look at how flexible that fund could be, and we're putting criteria together, which is incredibly important. And some of the criteria is, do we own the land? How many people use it? That's important. And what are the drainage pieces? Because what is the drainage position on the land? Because some of the most expensive works to upgrade roads is to provide all the drainage and the infrastructure. And then to look at prioritise a list. Now, that is work that's going on in the team. I'm afraid I don't have that information with me this evening, but what I could do is I could ask for that. And I'm happy to discuss it as and when it's available.
Councillor Thomas, did you pick up that response?
Yeah, I did. I think that's one we'll have to keep an eye on, I guess. Thanks so much for the response, though.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Martin Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 3 questions, but hopefully quite brief. First one relates to the capital slippage. Just over £7 million slipped from this financial year into next. Clearly, we have rampant inflation, some may say a 10% CPI, as I understand it. What impact, well, maybe an absolute number, but what provision has been made for capital increases or cost increases relating to inflation due to these slippages? But within that as well, more specifically, I note with some real dismay that just over 3 million earmarked for the RBED, the much needed RBED remedials, has slipped into the following year. Now, I understand that for whatever reason it has been decided to collaborate with Welsh Government on this. But at what point do we say, no, Welsh Government are dragging their heels? We have an obligation to these people whose houses we as a council, we damaged, and we as a council, or certainly the last council, apologise to them. They're going to think talk is cheap if we don't just knuckle down and get the work done. So I'd like to understand what we can do to put pressure on Welsh Government, or if that pressure is not forthcoming, that we go it alone and fix the houses ourselves. The third question, and hopefully the clarification, we've in our pack of papers tonight, within the capital capital tables, Cozy Corner outturn is 2.675 million. Within the minutes, page 5 of the minutes, it's referred to as 2.4 million. And within the self-assessment, there's reference to Cozy Corner at outturning at 2.1 million. Obviously, there's the best part of £600,000 difference between the top and the low figure. So are we just about to be told that we've got very good news and there's a big saving coming there? Or is there a mistake in some of those numbers? Thanks.
Councillor Williams, I picked up your first question, which related, because I just want to help officers here. Your first question related to potential slippage in the capital.
Slippage, yeah. Have we factored in inflationary pressures due to the slippage? The second question was, what do we do about RBED? It slipped another year. What pressure can we put on Welsh Government to up their game? And at what point do we give up on Welsh Government and spend the money ourselves? And the third one was about those 3 different figures for the Cozy Corner outturn. In the capital papers, it's 2.675 outturn. In the minutes, it's 2.4 million. And in the self-assessment, it's referenced at 2.1 million. Which one of those is correct?
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Your first question, I'm going to ask Caris to provide you with a response on that. The second question in relation to RBED, I'm going to ask the Chief Exec to respond to you. And the third question in relation to the financial outturn, I'll go back to Caris. Caris, first question on slippage, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for that question. As you say, we are slipping quite a lot of money already this year, but the reasons for that are in the report for you. Some of these are contractually committed, or we're close to being contractually committed, so we know what the sums are. Others, we're still in that process. As I said, when I introduced the report, we are continuing to monitor very closely the impact of inflation on this programme. And actually, as and when tenders come back, they are very strictly analysed, evaluated, and we look at whether or not actually we can afford that scheme at the level it's come in, or actually we can look to modifying that scheme in some way which will bring the cost down. But that's done on a scheme by scheme basis, depending on the figures that we receive, and we continue to monitor it.
Thank you, Caris. Councillor Williams, did you pick up the response to your first question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll now then go to the second question, which is in relation to the RBED scheme. Chief Executive, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Williams, for your question, and I know this will be of interest to other members as well. Just to say, we are still awaiting Welsh Government approval of our business case that was submitted a fair time ago. I want to assure you that we are doing everything we can to chase that, both at an officer and a political level. There is no evidence that there is any lack of support from Welsh Government. The last email I had a few weeks ago described there as being some wrinkles to sort out, which hints that there's still the principle is agreed. But I take the point it's taking far longer than anyone intended, but we will continue to chase that up as best we can.
Councillor Williams, you've had the response to your second question. I'm now going to defer to the third question, which is in relation to capital outturn, and invite Janine to provide a response to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, apologies if there are some discrepancies in the figure. The figure that is correct for Cozy Corner is 2.675. What I will clarify, that is the monies available that we have to construct that scheme. So we're not at an outturn position yet, Councillor Williams, because we've only just started the construction. So that 2.675 is split as follows: £1 million from Welsh Government, and that was the money that was left over from the scheme, the previous scheme, that had commenced on the site, the maritime scheme that sadly Credi went into administration. So Welsh Government have agreed after some discussion, that they will allow us to have that £1 million towards the scheme that we have now. And the other 1.675 million is from BCBC capital funding. So the funding available is 2.675. The scheme is currently on site. We were down there 2 weeks ago, and the steels are going up. It's going very well, and we're hoping to have completion by the 31st of March of next year, completion of that scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. Did you pick up that response, Councillor Williams?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your questions. I now move on. Councillor Mark John, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question, Mayor. This question relates to Caris and Councillor Howell-Williams. It was a question I wanted to ask in last month's council meeting, but obviously with the demise of the Queen, the meeting obviously didn't take place. Councillor Howell-Williams stated in the June meeting, the council will be held to account for this if not achieved, and that was in the cost of living payment towards the end of September. Where are we with it? Were they all paid out, or what percentage wasn't paid out, and what's happened to the rest of the money?
Thank you, Councillor John, for your question. I would query whether or not it's relevant to the report, but I'll tell you, I have a very brief response from Caris Lord, please. A very brief response.
It's not related to this report, but I can confirm that we have been asked to take a follow-up report into the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee with regards to that particular issue that you're asking about. So I can confirm we are doing a report, and it will be going back to Scrutiny Committee very soon.
And just to confirm, Councillor John, that Scrutiny Committee meets next week, so it will be timely.
It's not going next week. No, it's not going next week. I'm not sure where it is on the programme, but we have undertaken to take it into COSC.
Okay. I'll tell you, we'll defer then to the chair of COSC, who's sitting amongst us, Councillor
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just to let you know about the forward work programme for COSC. A date hasn't been agreed as yet, but it certainly is on our agenda so that we can learn lessons from the delivery of the cost of living scheme going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor John, be reassured, it is on the agenda and it will be subject to scrutiny.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Councillor Philip Jenkins, please. Councillor Jenkins?
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to come back on the question raised, I think, by Councillor Willis regarding the ARBED scheme. I don't know whether I'm in order or not, and I know that perhaps I can't put a motion, a proposal as such, but can I suggest to the Chief Executive, if both the Cabinet and the officers are virtually 100% confident that the Welsh Government, as everybody assumes and is in the press, are coming up with the money to help fund this scheme and the repairs, given that these residents are facing another winter under what some call horrendous conditions, and their premises getting worse. Could I suggest that we take the money, given that it's in reserves, there's money in reserves, take the money for reserves, and when we have the money from the Welsh Government, put it back in, because we've seen fit to lend money out, etc., as the finance officer told me last time. But if there's money there that's not being immediately used and earmarked for a specific project within the next month or two, then I would suggest that the officers look at doing something like that to alleviate as quickly as possible another winter in these deprived conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Chief Executive, please.
Two things, really. Not within my gift to make that decision. That would need to be a capital programme decision of the council. Secondly, I think this is important. Business case never envisaged any case done for this week. We want it done as soon as possible, clearly. That was always the case, that the initial parts of the proposal, surveying, engagement, the actual work was never envisaged.
Councillor Jenkins, did you pick up that response?
Well, not all of it, because the sound quality is very, very poor and has been all throughout the meeting. Not as he going in and out, but again, but it was just that I would make, like to make that statement. I will accept then what the officer said, but I felt it was my duty to raise that particular suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Your point is well made, and it is recorded in the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you.
I note that no other member has indicated that they wish to speak. So can I please take members to the recommendation, which is found on page 196 of your papers. And we are all in favour and approve the revised capital programme Q2 for 2022 and 2023. Can I have approval, please? Thank you. Moving on then, item number 11, Annual Treasury Management Outturn Report 2022-23. Can I ask for a mover and seconder for the report, please? Thank you. I'll now ask the Chief Officer Finance, Performance and Change to present this item. Carys, please.
Many thanks, Mr. Mayor. We're required under from the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy to ensure that we bring regular Treasury management reports through to Council, and the annual report is one of the key reports that we need to bring in front of you. So Treasury management is the management of the Council's cash flows, our borrowing and investments, and also the associated risks with those activities. And the Council is exposed to financial risks, including the loss of invested funds and the revenue effect of changing interest rates. The Treasury Management Strategy for last year was approved by Council in February of last year, and the report in front of you tonight outlines the economic context within which those Treasury management functions took place last year. So the report does refer to the continuing economic recovery from the pandemic, the situation in the Ukraine, rising inflation rates towards the end of last year, and also it's starting to touch on that many employers were struggling to fill vacant jobs, and that was flowing through into things like our delivery of our major capital programs, which impacts then on our Treasury management activities. So during last year, we did comply with our legislative and our regulatory requirements as agreed through Council last year, and the details of our activities are shown for you in Appendix A. With regards to borrowing, no long-term borrowing was taken out last year as a result of both slippage in the capital programme and also increased levels of reserves at the end of the financial year. There was a small increase in borrowing in relation to Salex interest-free loans that we took out, but they were for less than £1 million, so relatively small compared to our overall debt. And just to reassure members that we continually review our debt portfolio, and if there is an opportunity to reschedule any of our loans at a preferential rate, we would always take the necessary external advice and bring any proposals forward. At the end of March 2022, the balance of the investments held by the Council was £84 million, which was an increase from the balances held in previous years. Just to reassure you again that when we make investments, the Council ensures three things. First of all, we have to ensure that that money that we're investing is safe and it is secure, and that we will get it back. We also then have to look for liquidity, so should we need to get that money back, it's not tied up for a long period of time. And then we also look at yield. But the most important ones are around security and liquidity of our funding. So on the basis of that, the majority of our funds were invested in money market funds and other local authorities during last year. And all of the investments were undertaken in accordance with our Treasury Management Strategy and took account of all of the latest published long-term credit ratings for those organisations that we invested in. If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to update Council on two things really in relation to Treasury Management, which I think are relevant to this agenda item. And I know both of them, we've had issues raised with us recently about them. The first is to do with investments, and that's our investments with Thurrock Council. Members may be aware that issues have been raised in recent months about Thurrock Council. As at the end of September this year, we had two investments with that council, both of which were done in accordance with our Treasury Management Strategy and having taken advice from our external advisors. We have traded with Thurrock Council for a number of years, and the repayments due from the council have always been made on time and in line with all of the agreed terms that we had. Our current investments with the council total £8 million. We have two. Just to be reassured, really, that Essex County Council has now been appointed in the role of Commissioner and Best Value Inspector at Thurrock Council, which means that the financial controls of the council have transferred to Essex. And Thurrock have now written to us to confirm that they will be repaying all loans that they hold from other local authorities on the due dates. And if necessary, they will look at borrowing through the Public Works Loan Board to ensure that we get the money back that we have placed with the council. So I know that has been an issue a number of members have raised. The other issue is just about the impact of the recent budget announcements in relation to our treasury management functions. It is difficult to forecast the impact of those at the moment. However, it's looking likely that there will be increases in interest rates being offered by investments from other local authorities. So rates are already increasing in relation to that. And recent offers we've had are for 4%, whereas back in August, the rate being offered was 2.5%, and back early in June, it was nearer 1.8%. That means that the investments we're making will actually work harder for us, and we will earn a better return on those. And also just to say that should the rates continue to rise, we will obviously look at our debt portfolio and look at whether or not we should be reschedule any of our debt. But again, we'll always do that in close consultation with our council advisors, our external treasury management advisors. So thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. And I just take you to section 9 in the recommendations on tonight's report.
Thank you, Caris. Councillor Howard Williams has indicated that he wishes to speak in support of your presentation. Councillor Williams?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, in supporting the recommendation, I just would like to add that we do use expert independent advice to advise us on our treasury management. We make sure that our investments are secure and that we have good access to them. So security and liquidity, they are the two main components then of our treasury management activity. And that, of course, is to ensure that we can maximise the opportunities we have with our available finance. So happy to support the report.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. No, I can see one member has now put his hand up. Councillor Jonathan Pratt, please.
Apologies for that, Mr. Mayor. Just one question in regards to the investment made in Thurrock Council. Did the Borough Council here continue with its investment policy that the investment grade was the correct as per our policy for Thurrock Council, or was there any was there any movement on that? That'd be my question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We certainly don't have any intention to review our investment strategy at the moment. Obviously, we bring through our annual strategy now as we set the budget in February looking forward. But as already been said, we take advice from our external advisors before we make any investments. And in fact, we don't put investments out with local authority beyond 12 months as part of our assurance, and we're also capped with regards to the total amount that we can place with any local authority through our treasury management strategy. So I think we do have good controls within the policy at the moment. Any decisions around changing that, then we would obviously bring forward to council for approval when we set the new treasury management strategy in March.
Thank you, Caris. Councillor Pratt?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That answers my question.
Thank you. Councillor Freya Bledsoe, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a very quick question for clarification, and perhaps because I don't fully understand the situation. But with the Thurrock issue, could I please just ask Caris, did you just say that the money is backed by Essex who have come in now, but should there be an issue, it would be sort of double backed by the Loans Board? And if that's the case, is the Loans Board not an application process? So what happens if they say no to it? Do we lose our money then? Thank you.
Just to be clear, no, Essex isn't underwrite. They will repay that funding if they have to. they will borrow from the Public Works Loan Board to make good the payment back to us. You're right, they do have to apply for it, and the Public Works Loan Board would be wanting to ensure that they have the processes in place to ensure that they can repay that loan. So, but Essex have assured, well, Thurrock have assured us that money is good and it will come back.
So just to be clear, a loan that we've given to Thurrock is now being supported by another loan from the Loans Board, potentially, whether that goes through or not, in order to repay it back to us. Is that correct?
We have two loans with them. One is due to be repaid in May next year, and the other one is due to be repaid in August next year. Sure, what Thurrock would hope is that their financial situation is changed and they are able to repay that loan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bledsoe. Thank you, Caris. Councillor Tim Thomas, please.
I don't quite understand this, so I'll be really quick, but I'm just trying to establish when we loaned the money. And it looks like to me that we've loaned a significant amount of money on more than one occasion. Can you just clarify that and give me some timescales for that, please?
We have lent money to Thurrock in the past. I don't have any historical details for you, but I can tell you that we have two investments, or Thurrock have money from us on two investments. One is for the value of £3 million, and the second one for a value of £5 million. Both of them were made in line with our strategy and in line with our councillors' Treasury Advisors lending lists. Advice was given to us about lending to Thurrock councils, and both of our investments were made prior to receiving any advice for change in July 2020.
Yeah, okay.
And we have not made, I should confirm, we haven't made any further investments with them following the change in advice from Treasury Management.
Could you just clarify when the further £5 million was loaned to Thurrock, please?
It actually went out in August, but the agreement was made prior to that because quite often we roll our investments over with those authorities that we're already lending to, and therefore the agreement was done prior to the advice that we had in July.
Okay, it's just my understanding the story broke after that, but okay, thank you.
Thank you, Caris. Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Steve Bledsoe, did you want to ask a question?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I'm trying to pull a few strands together here from what Councillor Bledsoe and Councillor Thomas have asked, and picking up on the answer that Caris has given us. I would like to register a slight concern in this policy of inter-council lending, which historically has been seen as very safe and secure, whilst offering maybe smaller returns than other investments could make. However, I think we're all very acutely aware of the financial situation in this country and the fact that local authorities are going to be under pressure like never before in their finances. And the one thing that did slightly concern me was the lack of being able to quickly respond to other councils' financial situation, in the respect that the process of overturning a policy that may have been approved when times were different seems to be taking a very long time in relation to how we would need to react should somebody else's financial situation catastrophically fail. And I certainly would like some kind of guarantees that this corporate body here would be able to act a lot quicker than expecting our senior officer to have to go through a long process to protect the money. You know, we were in a briefing with our chief executive, and we are very acutely aware that we, along with other councils, are in very dire financial positions, and I don't want some historical policy that's been agreed in the past to be relevant when local authorities' finances are not in that position now, and I don't want to put any money at risk that we can't change a policy quickly and to reflect current market conditions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bledsoe, just for clarity, was there a question there?
I would just like some kind of assurances that we can move a lot faster to react to the financial situation this country and local authorities are in, that we don't adopt a policy that's been approved at a different time. So I'd like assurances from somebody that we can change our investment policy very quickly to reflect financial conditions in this country.
Caris, please.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, I think that's an interesting point you raised, isn't it? That all local authorities are currently facing the same budgetary issues that Councillor Williams outlined at the start of today's meeting. Maybe I could just differentiate between policy and practice to a certain extent. The policy allows us to do things and gives us the authority to do things, but actually we take daily recommendations from our Treasury Management advisors. Therefore, if they tell us it's not safe to put money with any organisation, be that a local authority or anything, we wouldn't do it. So I guess the policy allows us to do it, but we can change our practice within that policy, obviously, on a daily basis, depending on the advice that we're getting. So the policy is updated and reapproved on an annual basis. So at the moment, it's sort of 6 or 7 months since it was last approved. But as I said, our practice, I can assure you, is always very safe. So the minute we get any notification of problems in any organisation, we would not be placing money with them.
Thank you, Caris. I'm going to move on, Councillor Betcher, if you don't mind, because I'm very conscious of time. And 3 other members have indicated a desire to speak on this topic. Councillor Martin Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. It is a question. It's also a bit of exasperation. The 8 million, just to clarify, are we being told that we have £8 million of money lent to Thurrock, that there is a risk we may not get back because it's subject to either their finances recovering, and we all know about the situation we find ourselves in at the moment, globally, if not just in the UK. And it's either dependent on that, or is it dependent on them getting a public loan? Because that doesn't jump off these pages, and I'm slightly alarmed that this has come out in the detail.
Caris, please.
My apologies if I haven't made it clear for you, Councillor Williams. That money is not at risk. We are assured that everything is being dealt with at the other end to make sure that that money will come back to us on the repayment dates of May and August next year. So that money is not at risk.
Did you pick up that reassurance, Councillor Williams?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Caris, for that reassurance.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Davis, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, can we just clarify what money this is? It's my understanding this is monies that's the capital, it's set aside for capital programmes we can't spend currently at this moment in time. So it's lent to these other bodies to try to make more money, basically. It's not just gambling money for the sake of gambling money. Do you know what I mean? It is a reason for these things. They may have got this one maybe a little bit tricky at the moment. We've been reassured we're going to get the money back, but I think that needs to be clear where this money would sit. It would just sit in our bank accounts doing nothing if it wasn't invested elsewhere, and that's what the financial management team before.
No, that we're not gambling with money. To try and get a better return. This is money that is earmarked, just not spent it as yet. Yeah, and to go to your point, we do get a better return if we place that money with another organisation rather than leave it over. So this is our secure way of improving the interest rate for our money.
Thank you, Caris. I'm going to take one further question from Councillor Philip Jenkins, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I beg your indulgence. It's more of a statement, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't make it, as I've been inundated, obviously, since this story broke, and people don't understand the background. Firstly, I'd like to say to the officers, I don't believe any improprieties have been made, and everything has been done to the book, and for probably all the right reasons. But on a moral basis, I have to say, we are facing not only a crisis now, and have done over the decade or so, where this authority has had to make millions and millions of pounds of cuts, and we've seen we're going to have to do it in the future. It is neither morally right to be seen to be lending money when our taxpayers, from whom that money has been raised, are facing cuts in these services and their standards of living and the very infrastructure that they look to the council to support is being eroded. So I'd just like to say it's morally wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. I'm going to invite Caris very briefly to just respond, probably to just give a better understanding of Treasury management. Caris, please.
Just to say that this money will be money that's been built up many years, actually.